Hello. Now we pinned our sleeve into armhole. Can you see that? So our pins being pinned outside. So how do we need, how do we need to move the pins which is inside in order for us to be able to tuck? So what I usually do by pinning that way, then I go inside. And I start from the seam. So seam to the seam. So I start from the seam. So just turn it that way. And make sure all my seam allowance are matching together, including canvas. It's very, very important that your canvas is in the right places. And especially, make sure you tuck your canvas first together into your armhole. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to pin it together because canvas can move. So now you hold your seam allowance here, and what you're doing is you're finding the head of the pins here. Can you see that? So I'm holding my seam allowance in places, so I'm not moving with this finger. So move my pin, make sure all the seam allowance are matching, and then pin it back, but to the other side. Okay, and do that exactly the same. So so I've got the pin here, I can feel it. So finding the head of the pin, take it out, keep my seam allowance intact in place. So make sure nothing is being moved, and then put my pin back together. So with my hands, I'm really holding the sleeve in place. So here, like that. Make sure seam allowance is matching. Because it's the head of the sleeve, I also put on my finger. That way I know it's distributes the fabric, the amount of the fabric ahead of the sleeve. So that's the most of the fabric will go. Okay. So just keep everything in the same place, and I just repin it from outside to inside. So every single pin, I take it. Make sure seam allowance are matching. Okay. So if it happens that seam allowance is not matching, so you still keep your sleeve in the position, but just slightly move down, so in order to match it with the sleeve. So mine is matching. So it's all to do how you pinned it in the beginning, how you pinned the your head of your sleeve. So if it's slightly, so just move it that way. If it's really badly pinned, you have to kind of like go back, pin it again. Because it should actually match. If you cut your seam allowance the exact on both sleeve and armhole should match. So just continue. Again, find a pin. So it could be quite fiddly. Take the pin out, hold it in place, make sure it's all in the right place, and then put my pin back. Okay. You may have to do it several times, but it will worth it. And I know it's maybe really difficult, and it's actually is fiddly to put the sleeve in. That's why you have to have a patience. And just keep pinning together. Now it's easier because we're approaching and we're pinning underarm. So just less layers, easier to put pins together and swap the pins from outside to inside. So check your canvas, make sure your canvas is sitting in the right place. So just going to put another pin here. So nearly there. Keep matching your seam allowance. It's quite important you do that, because otherwise it would not sit properly. So just going to put one more pin here in order to attach that together. Fabulous. Okay, so I've done that. So I'm going to check, make sure my, so that's an intimate, like just so my seam allowance are matching. So you check and make sure your seam allowance are matching on another side. See that? And mine is absolutely perfect and sits on the right place. You check your the canvases, make sure it's nowhere it's been folded. Okay, so I can see here, that's quite a good example. See, that's get during the process, that's get modeled and attached. So what I'm going to do, you can tap that, but I'm just going to repin it and pin the linen through. Can you see that? So pin the linen through so it sits on the right place. So yeah, classical mistakes we can do by not checking everything. So I've done that. As I said, check again with the sleeve. It's all about preparation. So I've done that. So now I need to put on mannequin or on someone to check, make sure my sleeve hasn't moved, hasn't shifted by accident, and is still in the right place, and I'm still happy how it sits. Because sometimes what happens with the sleeve is when it's when you pin in, it slightly shifts from certain place, because you're also trying to make sure if your seam allowance are matching, to slightly readjust things to make sure it spins in the right place. And that's me, you know, that could be the reason where sleeve just shift by accident. So yeah, put on the mannequin, check again, or put on someone, check again. Okay, if you don't have anyone, make sure you check according to your balance point. Okay, so that's very, very important. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to check on my mannequin, and then I'll show you how to tuck your sleeve into your armhole, how to baste your sleeve into your armhole. Okay, see you later. Bye.